popular narrative that McLaren was sandbagging at the Dutch Grand Prix is completely contradicted by the fact that Lando Norris actually lost the lead to Kimi Antonelli at the lap 5 standing restart and had to execute 2 separate overtakes just to reclaim the win. This was not a team managing a comfortable buffer or hiding true pace behind a false front, but a genuine on-track fight where the supposed beneficiary of any manipulation was momentarily beaten fair and squick into Tarzan corner. If Woking had truly been holding back performance or orchestrating a result, you would expect a controlled procession from pole position, yet the telemetry and timing screens told a story of vulnerability rather than dominance. So if the car wasn't being deliberately restrained and the driver wasn't cruising in a managed race, what exactly caused Oscar Piastri to finish 32 seconds adrift in 6th place while his teammate took the checkered flag? That massive gap has sparked intense speculation about hidden setup changes or unspoken team directives, but the answer might be far more frustratingly mundane than any conspiracy theory suggests. We have to look past the sensationalist headlines and examine the raw sequence of events that defined this afternoon at Zandvoort. The assumption of sandbagging relies on the idea of untapped potential being artificially suppressed, yet the race data shows Norris operating at the absolute limit of the car's capability just to stay in contention. He did not lead wire to wire after the early red flag interruption. He had to earn every single position back through genuine wheel-to-wheel combat against a Mercedes that had superior launch traction off the line. When you watch the onboard footage from lap 54, seeing Norris brake significantly later than Antonelli and commit to the outside line around turn 1, you are watching a driver extracting maximum performance under extreme pressure, not someone driving to a predetermined delta. Later that same lap, he had to capitalize on Lewis Hamilton running wide at turn 10 just to secure the net race lead. These are the actions of a racer fighting for survival, not a team executing a pre-planned deception. But here is where the confusion takes root, and why so many viewers are searching for answers in the telemetry. While Norris was visibly pushing to the ragged edge, Piastri was fading into the background without an obvious mechanical failure or strategic disaster to explain the deficit. The timing sheets show a steady hemorrhage of time in the second half of the race that looks suspicious only because we lack a visible cause. There was no smoke, no radio message complaining of damage, and no dramatic spin. Just a slow, silent slide down the order that feels wrong when you know both drivers started in identical machinery. This creates a vacuum of information that our brains desperately want to fill with narratives about favoritism or hidden technical directives. We see one McLaren flying and the other floundering, and we assume intent rather than circumstance. Yet the verified reporting confirms absolutely no setup change, car modification, or specific instruction was given to Piastri during the race itself. The only concrete operational issue recorded was a sticky right rear wheel gun during his lap 21 pit stop, which cost him roughly 4 seconds in track position behind George Russell. That single mechanical glitch is confirmed fact, but it does not account for the entirety of a 32-second deficit to his teammate. Something else happened out there on the drying asphalt of the final sector, or perhaps something failed to happen within the car's balance as the track evolved. The media coverage has since framed this weekend as part of a broader 2026 slump for the Australian driver, noting he looked like a mere also-ran compared to his championship-leading form at this very circuit last year. But describing the symptom is not the same as diagnosing the disease. We are left staring at a result that defies easy explanation, caught between the proven reality of Norris's hard-fought victory and the unverified mystery of Piastri's collapse. The telemetry doesn't show sandbagging, but it also doesn't show us the full picture of why the two orange cars ended up in such different universes by the time the flag dropped. So evidence 13800, Before we could even assess Norris's recovery drive, the entire competitive landscape was shattered on lap 2 when Max Verstappen crashed heavily at the banked Leyendick corner, triggering an immediate red flag that reset every strategic calculation in the pit lane. This wasn't a minor excursion or a brush with the barriers, but a high-speed impact that brought out the safety car instantly and forced race control to suspend proceedings while debris was cleared from the final sector. The incident occurred precisely because that specific section of track remained damp from pre-race showers even as the rest of the circuit had begun to dry, creating a treacherous grip differential that caught out the home favorite in front of his own grandstands. Zandvoort's unique geography means the final corner sits in a natural bowl where moisture lingers far longer than on the exposed straights. And in 2026, that localized wet patch proved decisive enough to neutralize the reigning champion before the field had completed 2 full racing laps. Grip vanished suddenly. No warning given. Impact was severe. When you consider how this red flag intersects with the sandbagging narrative, the timeline becomes even more hostile to the conspiracy theorists. McLaren had no opportunity to manipulate the early phase of the race because the race effectively didn't exist for those opening laps. The team couldn't have been managing gaps or hiding pace when the cars were sitting stationary on the grid waiting for a restart decision. The chaos was entirely external to Woking's garage, dictated by weather patterns and asphalt temperature rather than any engineer performance window. What makes this moment so critical to understanding the afternoon is that it erased whatever qualifying advantage Norris had built on Saturday, forcing him to prove his speed all over again from a standing start against competitors who now had fresh tire data and revised launch maps. The red flag didn't just stop the clock, it deleted the opening chapter of the race script entirely. Have you ever watched a Grand Prix where the defining incident happened so early that it feels like the real event hasn't even begun? That psychological reset affects drivers differently, and in this case it handed momentum directly to Antonelli, whose Mercedes benefited from the interrupted rhythm more than any other car on the grid. The damp Lewandowski corner had already claimed its victim, but its secondary effect was to compress the field and amplify the importance of the restart procedure. Teams had roughly 30 minutes to recalibrate clutch bite points and adjust brake temperatures, turning what should have been a rolling tactical battle into a pure reaction time test. For McLaren, this meant their race-winning setup had to be validated twice in one afternoon, first in the aborted opening stint and then again under completely different track conditions after the suspension period ended. So let's reframe what we know about those chaotic first moments before moving forward. The red flag at Lewandowski was caused by residual moisture on a banked corner, not by any McLaren intervention, and it fundamentally altered the competitive balance before Norris could establish any kind of controlled lead. This interruption stripped away the possibility of early race sandbagging because there simply wasn't enough continuous green flag running to manage. The incident also explains why the subsequent restart became such a pivotal moment in debunking the manipulation theory, since the field was bunched up and the track stake had shifted beneath everyone's tires. Understanding this reset is essential context for everything that followed, because without it, the lap 5 battle at Tarzan Corner looks very different on paper than it actually felt in the cockpit. The dampness at Lewandowski didn't just take out Verstappen, it took away McLaren's ability to dictate terms from the front, forcing them into a reactive posture that would define the next 50 laps of racing. Here is where it gets serious. The persistent rumor that McLaren secretly modified Oscar Piastri's car to favor Norris has zero confirmed basis in any technical directive, setup sheet, or team radio transcript from race day, meaning the entire sabotage narrative collapses under scrutiny. What actually compromised his afternoon was a painfully ordinary operational failure during his lap 21 pit stop, when a sticky right rear wheel gun cost him approximately 4 seconds and dropped him directly behind George Russell's Mercedes. That single mechanical hesitation erased the podium position he had been holding comfortably in third place, transforming what should have been a straightforward strategy execution into a desperate recovery mission through traffic. The reporting attributes this delay exclusively to a wheel gun issue within the pit box itself, not to any deliberate strategic choice, tire compound variation, or engineered performance deficit designed to manipulate the championship order. Gun jammed, position lost, recovery failed. Can you imagine the frustration of watching your teammate fight for victory while you're stuck battling for points because of a 2-second equipment malfunction? Piastri's situation wasn't the result of hidden software maps or asymmetric fuel loads. It was the brutal reality of high-speed mechanics where thousandths of a second determine whether you emerge ahead of a rival or spend the next 30 laps eating dirty air. The verified sources consulted for this analysis found absolutely no evidence of car modifications specific to his chassis during the race, nor any post-race admission from Andrea Stella about differential treatment. The only concrete documented intervention was that faulty wheel gun, a routine but catastrophic piece of bad luck that has happened to every team on the grid at some point this season. Yet, because it occurred in the context of Norris's eventual victory, the internet connected dots that don't actually exist in the official record. This distinction between mechanical failure and manufacturer disadvantage is critical to understanding why the sandbagging theory falls apart upon closer inspection. If McLaren had truly wanted to suppress Piastri's performance, they wouldn't have risked a visible pit stop disaster that invites exactly this kind of forensic analysis. They would have used subtler methods like engine modes or tire management deltas that leave no smoking gun in the timing data. Instead, what we see is a team that fumbled a routine service operation and then had no answer for the resulting pace deficit in the second half of the race. The absence of any technical explanation beyond that sticky wheel gun creates an uncomfortable void, but filling that void with unverified conspiracy theories does a disservice to both drivers and the engineers who work transparently within the regulations. So let's be precise about what we can and cannot confirm regarding Piastri's compromised result. The lap 21 pit stop delay caused by a right rear wheel gun issue is documented fact that directly led to him losing track position to Russell. The rumored secret modification or setup change directed specifically at his car during the race remains entirely unconfirmed across all 7 sources consulted for this breakdown. His subsequent inability to match Norris's pace in the closing stages is described only as a general struggle without attributed mechanical cause, leaving us with an open question rather than a proven scandal. Acknowledging this gap honestly is more valuable than inventing certainty where none exists, especially when the stakes involve reputations and championship integrity. The wheel gun told us everything we need to know about why he fell behind Russell, It just doesn't tell us why he couldn't fight back afterward, and that silence is where speculation thrives despite having no factual foundation to stand on. Paddock coverage from outlets like the Canberra Times has since framed this unexplained second-half pace deficit as part of a much broader and more troubling pattern, describing Piastri's 2026 campaign as calamitous from the very first round. The contrast with his performance at this exact circuit just 12 months ago is staggering, because in 2025 he won the Dutch Grand Prix while leading the Drivers' Championship by 34 points. Back then, he was the undisputed benchmark at Zandvoort, managing tires and traffic with the confidence of a title favorite who had mastered every nuance of the banked corners. Now, he looks like what the Australian press called a mere also-ran, unable to extract the same speed from machinery that his teammate is using to win races consecutively. This isn't about one bad pit stop or a single damp corner, it's about a sustained erosion of form that has left him searching for answers while Norris builds momentum. Form evaporated completely, confidence gone, questions mount. Why does this historical context matter so much when evaluating the sandbagging claims? Because if McLaren were deliberately suppressing one driver to elevate another, you would expect the suppressed driver to still show flashes of their true potential when circumstances aligned perfectly.